Hello folks, how's it going? So welcome to another One Piece review. This time we'll be covering manga chapter 1100. Like a lot of people expected like a massive boom event to go down in this chapter. Like expectations like Dragon, oh he's going to show up in the present time to save Kuma. Oh, Dragon's going to show up to put an end to Saturn. Like none of those things have happened yet. And I think like it's expectations that came from this flashback because Oda managed to weave in the God Valley incident within this flashback, which nobody expected. Like Ginny literally caused the God Valley incident to take place, the war, by baiting everybody to come in for the devil fruits or for the riches that were on God Valley. So Ginny caused that, and Ginny was a character we didn't know existed until about 5 chapters ago. So there you go. So Oda decided to like, I don't know if he's wrapping up Kuma's backstory with this chapter. Like, I don't know. If he doesn't, then there's a couple of things for him to tie up with this flashbacks still ongoing, if that's the case. If not, then we'll go back into present time. Before I dive further into this chapter, I actually want to touch on some tidbits of information when it comes to the anime. So obviously with One Piece episode 1085, we literally closed the curtains on the final act of Wano. Wano Act 3 is officially in the past in the anime, and we're about to move forward. And we got some interesting details following this episode. So we said bon voyage. We got the farewell to Momonosuke, sayonara, it's time to move on. And in true Luffy style, he literally chose a reckless path and endangered the lives of his crew to go back down the same way that he went up and almost get them killed. Literally, Wano ended the way it started, so I like that. Obviously, it became a competition between Law Kid and Luffy, so now they're on their separate paths. Although, spoiler alert, we're going to be seeing them very shortly. The conclusion of this episode 1055, we got a teaser for what's to come with the Egghead Island content in the anime. We got the visuals of the Straw Hats with the Egghead Island outfits they're going to be wearing during the arc, so that was really cool. And right at the end of the teaser, we got Vegapunk Lilith in full front, so that's going to be cool. I'm sure anime only's minds are going to blow when that episode drops, because I know it did for a lot of people when this came out in manga over a year ago. So mark it down, January 7th 2024 is when the Egghead Island arc will officially begin. I'm pretty sure we have a couple of like world building episodes, which I'm really looking forward to, because they tend to be some of the best episodes, and it's going to be breath of fresh air since Wano Act 3 was literally the longest act. So it's been a while since we had some world building episodes, so this will be a breath of fresh air, especially for a lot of us who knows what's coming. I have a question about the anime. It's like, with Wano ending, literally curtains closed on the Wano arc in the anime, what happens with the ending now? Because like I said before, like we got that ending after episode 1071, right? But the thing is, like, that ending was about Wano, and the Wano arc is over with. So, are we going to get a new ending? Or are we going to get a new opening? We've got a cover page with Sanji and Usopp front and center. It's a cover request, and while Sanji is cooking, Usopp is thinking about onion, pepper, and carrot back on his village. So, that's actually really cool. So, we get into this chapter, and pretty much what I thought was going to happen with Saturn and his meddling ass. I actually like this because it answers 2 of our most important questions when it comes to like Kuma and his whole backstory. We could have like figured it out ourselves, but it's nice that Oda's giving us confirmation within one scene. So we see Kizaru, and he's there as the extra muscle for the world government to make sure that Kuma actually falls in line. And so Kuma's like pretty much gave him the ultimatum. You have 3 options. You have 3 ultimatums. Number 1, because you have a 296 million bounty on his head, it's cool we're getting like the confirmation of what his bounty actually is at this point, even though it was revealed pre-time skip. But it's kind of cool we're getting it here, because we only get to see that he had a bounty on his head, but we didn't get to see the amount. So here, he has 296 mil. The condition of allowing this treatment for Bonney to go through, he has 3 conditions to he has to abide by. Number 1 is he must agree to become a Shichibukai, which makes sense because I initially thought they were going to give him that ultimatum when they captured Ginny, but it turns out no. It's if you want your daughter to be cured, then you have to become a warlord. And the reason we want you to become a Shichibukai is because a rookie named Ace took down Jinbei, and now he's been shifted, and now we want you to take his place. So that makes sense in that regard. Ace was getting some recognition, which makes sense because back in Thriller Bark, when we first saw Kuma, Nami was the first of the Straw Hats to actually encounter Kuma, and Kuma literally asked, "Do you know a pirate named Ace?" And this was directed towards Nami before he sent Perona to Muggy Kingdom. So the second condition is you must become a human weapon for the Navy. And this is kind of important too. It's Saturn knows that Kuma has history with the Revolutionary Army. If you accept our offer, we must take precautions to ensure you never turn your power against the world government. Well, I guess they weren't that thorough. Kuma's interactions with the Straw Hats and then helping them get away is what led to these events happening now. So it sounds like you must agree to give up free will and sense of individuality. Now, Sam, before this flashback took place and he was talking to Bonney, he's like, "Oh, I had nothing to do with Kuma except to become a cyborg." Bullshit. And I called that out. It's yeah, you literally gave him an ultimatum. It's either you suffer and don't get the treatment, and Bonney was aware until she saw Kuma's memories. Keep that in mind. So I think Vegapunk's protesting to this because it would literally be killing him, literally, because he's killing off his humanity to become a cyborg, even though he has traits of his humanity left. Even after this, we know this. You see Kuma in the background, he's trembling with sadness. It looks like he's contemplating is this a hard choice? No, because he literally turns up and says, "Oh, I'm so grateful. I'll happily accept any fate so long as Bonney is cured." The true father figure he is. It may not be by blood or by, technically speaking, after this chat, I guess it's DNA related because of the stem cell transplant. So Vegapunk actually tears up. Kizaru is "Oh boy," and then Saturn over the den of the movie, she's "Okay, we got a deal. So dealing with the Sapphire Scale will take 6 months. It'll take an extra year on top of that before she can be exposed to light. So it's not an immediate change. No, it's going to take time. We know when we first saw Bonney, she looks to be cured, so that's not really much of a problem. And she by default is going off to see the world because I personally believe she's going out to meet Kuma again. So that it's not really stated, but that's obvious why she became a pirate. All these loose ends get tied up little by little, and it's how much more could Oda do to make this flashback of Kuma so emotional? You want him to succeed, but it doesn't look good right now. Even if he doesn't succeed, you want Bonney to succeed through his will, which I've been saying that since the very beginning of this arc. That's exactly what's going to go down. Ever since we got the reveal that Kuma was the father of Bonney, and we know what Kuma went through, whether or not he's killed off or not, that will and that will be passed on, and we're going to be cheering on Bonney to succeed and to see Sungon Nika. They still want to keep supervision over Bonney to make sure that Kuma or Bonney doesn't run. And Kuma's okay, but just take her back to Sorbet. We can keep her in the church where she grew up. If you can grant that request, I promise you I'll obey without question. So Kuma can't go to see Bonney again after he literally becomes a cyborg, and they can't run away from this. And this is actually pretty cool because this is where Vegapunk is doing the grunt of the work to figure out how to do the treatment. And this is where it comes up, "Oh, I wish there were 5 more of me." So here's that. Now this is interesting because at this point in time, Vegapunk had not created the clones, these satellites. The stem cell come from Kuma to cure Bonney, which technically means the DNA being passed over is Buccaneer because of what we know about Kuma, which makes sense because there is a scene where during Egghead Island where Bonney is like trying to kill Vegapunk and it looks like she's bulking up. So that might explain a few things. Like Oda is including Sentomaru and Kizaru into the interactions of Vegapunk, Kuma and Bonney. So much like we got previously with Kizaru and Sentomaru and Vegapunk having a connection, you can kind of draw the conclusion there's an interaction here. I mean, for crying out loud, if I don't know what more could be said or how more obvious it could be. You have like Sentomaru and Kizaru along with Bonney, Vegapunk and Kuma doing the dancing to what looks to be the drums of liberation, right? So Vegapunk says to Bonney, after a year of rehabilitation and being out of the sun, you'll make a full recovery. Which makes sense because we know she recovers and she can go out in the sunlight. So again, that's something we already know. That part of Bonnie's trouble has come to an end. It ties up how Kuma ended up becoming a Shishibukai and why he allowed himself to become a cyborg to cure Bonney in the first place. So it all ties itself up, so I like that. And also, Kuma telling Vegapunk never to tell Bonney about this. Unfortunately, Bonney discovered this fact for herself, and now she's in an emotional wreck right now. But she's also made the pledge to not kill Vegapunk because she's seen the most important parts of Kuma's memories. So they return to the Kingdom of Sorbet, and we see the sapphire scales are receding. We see Granny Connie, which I guess that's where Bonney gets the inspiration to turn herself into an old lady because of the age fruit, Toshi Toshi no Mi. Kuma has to live for his life as a Shishibukai, and all of a sudden, before he goes away, we get members of CP8, not CP9, CP8. Immediately is you see that it looks like Khalifa, a member of CP8, as codename Alpha. So either that's Khalifa or that's somebody related to her. But either way, I find that interesting considering she's the only one of Cypher Pole that we know about, that we recognize. Now, we don't know the two goons behind her. They could be in disguise as well. We don't know. But I find that very interesting. And what's more interesting is, if that is Khalifa, then Rob Lucci can't be far behind because of what was stated back when CP0 arrived on Egghead Island. And Lucci mentioned about not let Bonney escape again. Like, I'm going to kill her without fail. Like, the meaning, the implication that they've met before and somehow Bonney was able to avoid a being killed by Rob Lucci. Makes sense. So like I said, if Oda is going to continue this flashback, maybe this could be something that expands upon. It's not that much of importance. Like, it's just something that I think Oda could touch upon if he wanted to, if he's going to continue this flashback. Whoever this girl is, whether it's Khalifa or somebody else related to her, she tries to threaten Kuma by saying a child's life is such a fragile thing, which could have been a mistake right there, because if he really wanted to, he could just goodbye. And Kuma's like, thank you, Bonney, I'm glad you were born. So that's going to be really this flashback is going to be even 100 times more emotional in the anime because of the way they handle it. So the way they handle Wano, I don't expect this to be any different. By far and away, the best part of the entire chapter is when the world spreads about Kuma becoming a Shishibukai, a member of the Seven Warlords. We get each of the warlords at that time who was a Shishibukai getting the news. It starts with Doflamingo because you see Sugar in the background. It's like, hey, young master, there's a new warlord. And you got Doflamingo like, oh shit. Like, there's a new player in town. Another villain has come to play. And he's like dead excited by this. You got Mihawk who reads the paper, but he doesn't give a shit. But he does have a serious expression, so that's interesting. Also, random explosion in the background. You even get to see like Avida and Kobe get the news. It's like, and like Avida being typical as the first villain of the entire story, says, oh, he looks as big as Whitebeard. Kobe, who do you reckon is superior, me or him? And Kobe, of course, has to lie. honestly, the funniest reaction is like Crocodile and Robin. So you got Robin's like, oh, what do you think about this? And Crocodile's like, I could give two shits about this. Like, I don't care. I'm all about my plan to like rule over Alabasta. So I don't give a shit. So shout out to Alabasta Robin, pre-time skip. So I'm sure that made a lot of Robin fans nostalgic and tear up. Then we get, speaking of Shishibukai, or former Shishibukai, so, and future Shishibukai, we got Blackbeard, Jinbei, and Ace. Now what's interesting is Ace turned down the option of becoming a warlord, which he could have been. You got Jinbei and Teach and Whitebeard and Marco in the background. So Ace starts off by saying, oh, they finally found the replacement. That's great news, Jinbei. Teach is like reading details on him. So that was interesting too. Which I find very interesting because I'm wondering if he knows about his devil fruit at this point. Because we've got Boa Hancock and Amazon Lily. There's oh, this business doesn't affect us. I follow no man's orders. We even get to see Moria and Perona. Ironically, we got Moria's like, oh, this here's a pawpaw man. That doesn't exactly sound frightening, does it? But then Perona actually having some common sense here. Well, he's already a warlord, so he's got to be strong enough to make the cut. Finally, we get the Revolutionary Army hearing about this. Sabo, Koala, and Hacker in the background. And like Sabo's like, oh, don't the warlords answer directly to the government? And Koala's like, no, there's no way we'd do that. Dragon, having the ultimate poker face, says absolutely nothing. So I'll get back to it in a minute because this may go back to what I was saying a couple of reviews ago. We follow that up, and I love the Jolly Roger that Kuma has here with the smiling face because it's symbolic of Kuma throughout this entire thing, this entire torture chamber that has been his backstory. So, and we see he's writing a letter that's we posted off to Bonney. This may like evading like Rob Lucci to like sail the seas to like find a father. I feel like that's where this is going for like Bonney's characters. Like, and we know her crew as members who actually assisted Ginny and Kuma back in the day end up becoming members of Barney's crew as well. So Kuma's thinking about everybody else, but hope they're doing well. And the chapter ends with the ship about to enter a village, and it could be very well Luffy's village because we see Luffy pre-time skip agitating a tiger to end the chapter. So yeah, and there's however, and the reason why I asked about the Kuma backstory, if it's wrapping up and we're going to go into present time next chapter, is because there's really no caption about, oh, what will this encounter entail? Like, where is Kuma going? So nothing about that. It just says the front cover and the colour spread next issue. So to me, I personally feel like we're going into present time, but if we're not, there are some things that Oda could expand upon. I just talked about one of them being Bonney, because this backstory does involve her as well. Want you to cheer for Kuma and Bonney to get through this, to like reunite, and to possibly see the reincarnation of Sun God Nika by witnessing Luffy going to Gear 5th. Like, that has yet to happen, and it will happen. One of many reasons why Bonney is not dying. Another reason is what she said about telling Luffy, oh, I'm going to spill the beans about what happened at the Reverie after this. So, I don't know if Oda's going to change his mind on that. Another thing, after a flashback like this, Kuma's a question mark of whatever memory he has left is going to be him recognizing Bonney at the very end, the very last of his humanity. It's going to be a very, very sad reunion, to say the least, because we'll have to wait and see whether or not this chapter really marks the end of the Kuma flashback. It would make sense, because, like I said, relatively speaking, this is a Kuma backstory, and there really isn't much to divulge into when it comes to like Kuma. I feel like we've got the bases covered, and like I said at the start, like a lot of people expectations may be sent down a little because they were expecting something mind-blowingly epic to go down, like Dragon doing something, like a reveal of his devil fruit. You know, like it's expectations. Like, admittedly, I've been guilty of this myself. Like, we didn't know how long Oda's would like expand on this flashback, considering how long he took with the Reverie, which in my opinion took way too long. So it messed around with the flow of what's going on with Egghead Island, where we had to cut everywhere, where there's certain things that could have been expanded upon, hasn't been expanded upon. York versus Robin. Another plot point that needs to get revealed is how the hell did Bonney get that weapon, even though it didn't amount to nothing. I still want to know where she got that weapon from and who she got it from. Was it Vegapunk? I don't know. So that's something else we need to find out. And most importantly, the third reason why I don't think Bonney is dying is because nothing was stated about where and how Bonney got that devil fruit that she has now. The Toshi no Mi that she somehow ate off screen. How did a little girl manage to get her hands on a rare devil fruit? I have a question now. Is Saturn aware at this point in this flashback? Is he aware that Bonney has consumed that devil fruit? That's one question I have. Another question I have, and this ties back to what we saw with Dragon, and a lot of people are like saying, oh, Dragon's taking another L because he's not doing anything. But the thing is, that's the point. It's like all that's gone down here, and I said this a couple of reviews ago. Like, there's something about the whole situation involving Ginny that doesn't sit right with me. And I'm not talking about the kidnapping and what may have happened after that with the Celestial Dragon. I'm talking about just the whole thing in general. Like, this, like, for starters, how the hell did Saturn know Kuma was a member of the Revolutionary Army? How? Because this is something that Dragon keeps a tight lip on. Number two, how did the government know where Ginny and a group of the revolutionaries are going to be in the first place? And did they know Kuma was a part of that, a part of the revolutionaries back then? If not, then that needs to be explained. I'm sorry, like, no. A Celestial Dragon had eyes for Ginny, apparently, but we don't know why. And why did Ginny all of a sudden contract the disease as soon as she left Mirajose? Like, did she have that disease before when Kuma first met Ginny and Ivankov? I'm sorry. Like, that's questions like we kind of need to have answers to, and I feel like the longer we don't get those answers, like, granted, like, are they important? No, but they are to Bonney and to Kuma, I would think. And like I said, I feel like Dragon knows something is up. Now, there's a theory that he was once a Marine because he's the son of Garp. Keep that in mind. The most dangerous criminal in the world, according to the world government. Like, Akainu cannot stand him. He hates his guts. I said it in a couple of reviews ago, and I'm going to say it again. Like, I feel like Dragon knows something else is up. Like, by the way, that isn't an expression of worry or concern. That's an expression of serious, like, okay, like, serious regret or serious, like, he knows something's up. So it's kind of foolish to, like, judge Dragon and what he's capable of just because he hasn't done anything. Like, that's the point. Like, how, and I get, like, Shanks had tidbits of epicness here and there, but I feel like that's kind of like the appeal. Like, we don't really know what Dragon's capable of. We don't even know what his devil fruit is. There's a lot of people that thought that was going to be revealed in this chapter, but obviously Oda had plans to, like, flesh out this backstory. So I have no problem with that, by the way. I think it's kind of needed because it ties up a lot of loose ends. Also need to take in consideration here that the ship with the Blackbeard Jolly Roger is around, so it just depends on who's on that ship. Another factor to take into consideration here, if Kuma somehow gets killed and the Straw Hats and Bonney get away, which I feel like that's ultimately what's going to happen, let's not forget, Blackbeard pirates are devil fruit hunters. I personally feel like it's not going to be the world government that gets that devil fruit. It's going to be a member of the Blackbeard pirates, which, technically speaking, would make perfect sense considering Blackbeard decimated most of Bonney's crew. We haven't seen them post time skip. We saw them in Stampede, but that's not canon. So again, unless we get confirmation they're still alive, Bonney doesn't have a ship, by the way. Where the hell's she gonna go? It's like so there's factors that you need to take into consideration here when it comes to, like, Bonney. There's a lot to divulge. What could be the end of one of the most emotional backstories I think we've gotten. If not, it's definitely one of the darkest backstories that we have ever gotten, for multiple reasons. So there's still a few question marks about that, though. Like I said about Ginny and Bonney, where did she get that devil fruit? How did she get that devil fruit? So let me know what you guys think down below. Those are my thoughts. That's going to do it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you did it. Thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support when it comes to these videos. See you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.